and the omnibus. So I was forced into the Archers when I was a child. And look, it's come back to bite me later on.
I'm awash with the stuff.
The Archers is the world's longest-running radio show, with more than 15,000 episodes broadcast. Despite being a rural flavour show, The Archers is recorded in the heart of the UK's second-largest city.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive.
Hi there.
We're diving headfirst into some really interesting source material today. It's a transcript, basically giving us this, fly-on-the-wall perspective. It focuses on a first date, but honestly, it reveals so much more about everyone involved and all the stuff swirling around that date.
Exactly. We get these conversations happening like before the date, during it, and kind of on the sidelines. Different viewpoints, anxieties, glimpses into all these ongoing dramas.
Right. So our mission, our goal for this deep dive is to sort of pull up the key moments, understand what's driving everyone, and see how all these different threads actually connect.
Because it gets really interesting, doesn't it?
It really does. This isn't just, your standard first date. There's this whole elaborate rescue mission baked in.
Planned by well-meaning friends who are just convinced it's all going to go terribly wrong.
Yeah, a pre-planned escape strategy. It's quite something.
And that whole mission, it provides this fascinating frame. We get to see the date, sure, but also the dynamics between the friends orchestrating this thing.
Okay, so let's set that scene first. The rescue operation. We've got Helen's friends, that's Ian, Adam, and Alice, meeting up beforehand. Kind of secretly.
And Ian seems to be the main engine behind this whole intervention idea.
Right.
He knows the guy Dan from work, apparently, or worked with him before. And he's completely convinced Dan is, what was the phrase? A massive phony.
Wow, okay. Strong words.
Definitely. So Ian's certain Helen is going to need an out. Like, immediately.
That's quite a prejudgment, isn't it? But the others, Adam and Alice, they seem persuaded enough to actually plan this.
Oh yeah, they get into brainstorming escape signals. The first idea is like a subtle ear scratch.
Subtle, maybe too subtle. Adam points out he might not even see it from where he's planning to sit.
Practicalities. So then someone suggests a coughing fit.
Which Helen apparently just shuts right down. No drama for her.
Yeah, she actually says something like, she's looking forward to a lovely meal. She seems hopeful, despite her friends planning her escape.
That's important, yeah. Her outlook is positive, even with all this background noise of doubt from her friends.
But they're committed to the plan anyway.
Yeah.
So the signal they finally agree on is dropping a napkin.
Simple, visible, should be clear enough, right?
In theory. And they dish out the roles. Adam's job is to sit nearby, keep watch, eyes on Helen.
Okay.
And Ian and Alice are the backup team waiting for Adam's signal to, swoop in.
It's quite the production for a dinner date.
It really is. Says a lot about how much they care for Helen, maybe. Or maybe it's their own anxieties getting projected onto her.
Could be. So, okay, fast forward. The date actually starts. Helen meets Dan. He works at the hotel where they're eating.
Right. And Dan opens with a pretty standard compliment, telling Helen her photos do not do you justice.
Nice enough start.
But then he apparently just dived straight into talking about his job. Managing the hotel.
On the date.
Yeah.
At his workplace. Okay.
Yeah. Describing it as a baptism of fire, how he has to knock heads together. Says the staff were doing their own thing, servicing their own egos, I think he said.
Wow. That's quite the management philosophy to share right off the bat. Gives you a picture of him, maybe stressed, maybe trying to sound important. Maybe that's the phony thing Ian picked up on.
Could be. His big point seems to be that hotel work is all about teamwork.
And what's really interesting is Helen's reaction. She finds a connection immediately.
She does.
She compares it to farming. Says farming is exactly the same. She relates his management stuff to her world, shows she's practical, looking for that connection.
That's quite telling about her. Okay, so while they're talking, the transcript cuts back to the friends, right? The observers.
Yep. And their observation post isn't ideal. There's a pillar in the way.
A pillar blocking the view of the rescue. Perfect. Adds to the slightly chaotic feel of their plan.
Totally. And even from what they can see, their opinions on Dan are split. Ian's still firmly in the massive phony camp.
But Alice thinks he's gorgeous.
So, completely different takes. Are they seeing Dan, or just what they expect to see?
Good question. And while they're trying to watch the date, their own lives creep into the conversation. All the other stuff going on. They mention open farm Sunday preparations at Bridge Farm.
And then there's this bit about security at Brookfield being stepped up. just the Grandas and Rex on duty, apparently.
And they wonder why. They speculate maybe it's linked to that abattoir protest we heard about before.
Right, and we should just note, this mention of a protest, it's just reported from the source material, showing these background tensions exist in their world.
Exactly.
Right.
It adds this layer of real-world stress.
Yeah.
Then they shift to another big thing, Martha's nursery situation, her transition to school.
Oh yeah, this part really shows the parental anxiety, doesn't it? Martha's having a little graduation ceremony. Gown, mortarboard, the whole thing.
Cute. But the main thing is, this meeting they've scheduled with the nursery manager.
And it's clearly stressing them out. They were told it's something about making sure she's school ready, but that's so vague. They're racking their brains wondering what it could really be about.
And that worry is definitely amplified because they compare it to Xander's issues when he started reception class. Remember the biting incident?
Oh, right. The transcript clarifies he was bitten once, but then he did the rest of the biting.
His logic apparently was one quick chomp. You know, kid logic. Simple, direct, maybe not the best strategy.
Definitely not. And the fallout. The stern talking to, having to apologize to all those parents of the bite-marked toddlers, clearly stuck with them.
Yeah. So now, with this meeting about Martha, they're jumping to conclusions, thinking it must be to do with herself, meaning something Martha did. That past experience is really fueling their fear for her.
So all this worry and planning and past trauma is buzzing around while Helen and Dan are just, trying to have a normal conversation.
Let's get back to that conversation then. They start sharing more personal stuff.
Right. Dan talks about his background. He apparently used to be really serious about football.
Yeah, made the first team, lived to play football, he says.
But then he had a bad injury, tore his cruciate ligament. That ended the football dream.
And that's what led him into hospitality. Quite a career change. He's worked all over New York, Madrid, Zagreb.
Sounds impressive. But then he shares this little detail about his godson, Finn.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Apparently Finn's favorite place isn't any of those fancy cities. It's Abbas in North Wales. Because they went sailing there once.
Oh, that's actually quite sweet. Humanizing.
Yeah.
A contrast to the knocking heads together manager talk from earlier.
Definitely. And then Helen opens up a bit too, about her family. She clarifies Lee isn't the father of her boys.
Right. She explains Henry's father was a donor, so unknown identity.
And Jack's dad, Rob, died about 18 months ago. She mentions they weren't together then, but felt Dan should know.
And Dan's reaction here is interesting. The transcript notes he's polite, sensitive, says things like, "Sorry, I don't mean to pry," and "I'm glad."
Glad she's shared, presumably. Or glad she's okay. Either way, it suggests he has some empathy, maybe more than Ian gives him credit for.
Yeah, it complicates that initial phony assessment. Okay, should we quickly touch on the other subplots the friends discuss? It shows just how much is on their plates.
Good idea. There's the whole issue with Grant's money. Apparently the bulk of it is just gone. Brian hasn't figured out where yet.
That creates this financial uncertainty, and it's hitting Kate particularly hard. She got a tiny inheritance and feels like her care for Gran wasn't really valued.
Despite people trying to reassure her.
And this has real consequences for her plans. It impacts spiritual home. The yurts apparently need money put into them.
And it stoles her personal dream, right? Saving up for her own place, a small holding for proper regenerative farming.
Exactly. And she mentions why she doesn't just go back to home farm. She feels Stella's doing a great job there. And crucially, Stella has managed to stop Brian from meddling, something Kate admits she struggled with.
That reveals a lot about Kate's own feelings, maybe struggles with confidence or setting boundaries with Brian.
Yeah. And then the last thing they touch on is Lillian possibly leaving Ambridge.
Oh, right. Will she sell her share in the stables? Justin apparently thinks she'll go through with it.
But the family feeling is clear. They really miss her. She's seen as the heart of the family.
So, yeah. Money worries, career dreams, family dynamics, potential departures. It's a lot, all bubbling under the surface while this date is happening.
Okay, back to the main event. As the evening goes on, the friends watching start to notice something unexpected.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, despite Ian's certainty, they see Helen and Dan actually seem to be getting on like a house on fire.
Really? So the date's going well?
Looks like it. They're described as definitely enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
The evidence is mounting that the whole rescue plan might be, well, redundant.
But Ian isn't convinced.
Not at all. He's still sure Dan is a boring Helen, that she's bored to death and needs rescuing. And then he spots it. The drop napkin?
The signal.
The signal. The moment they planned for. Except Adam, the lookout, completely missed it.
Oh no.
Why, he admits he got distracted. Typical.
So Ian has to prompt him.
Yep. Ian insists, tells Adam she needs help, we promised her. Really pushes him to intervene.
Okay, so Adam goes over. This is going to be awkward.
Massively awkward. Adam walks up to the table, picks up the napkin, and asks if everything's okay. Clearly acting on the signal he just got told about.
And Helen's reaction? Please tell me she was mortified.
Utterly. Immediate embarrassment. She quickly clarifies the napkin drop was just an accident, exclaims something like, "Oh, how awful," and "I've never been so embarrassed."
Oh, poor Helen. And poor Adam, kind of.
Adam tries to laugh it off, you know.
Sure.
Makes a joke about waving to his wingman, Ian. Says maybe he should have brought someone too, but yeah, the awkwardness is palpable.
It's the perfect collision, isn't it? Their whole over-engineered plan crashing into the reality that Helen was actually fine.
Exactly. But thankfully they seem to recover. Helen and Dan actually laugh about it after Adam leaves.
That's good. A sign it really was going well. They can laugh that off.
Totally. And they underline it by deciding to stay for dessert. Helen even says, "Since neither of us needs rescuing."
A direct callback to the failed mission. Love it.
And then, the ultimate proof that the friends were wrong. They decide to have a second date.
No way, after all that.
Yep, proper plan too. They're going to a 40th birthday party together next week.
Wow. And Helen's reaction?
Positive, enthusiastic apparently. Sounds perfect, definitely.
Yeah.
So the rescue mission was a total bust because it absolutely wasn't needed. The date, a genuine success.
Okay, so quite a journey in this deep dive. We started with this secret meeting, this elaborate, slightly paranoid escape plan, and we end up with an unexpectedly successful first date, complete with plans for a second one.
And along the way, we've peeled back all these layers, haven't we? Parental anxieties about nursery, complicated family money situations, financial pressures, these deeply held personal dreams about farming.
Career changes forced by injury, sensitive sharing about family histories, and just the basic, unpredictable chemistry or lack thereof between two people meeting.
So what does it all mean, really? I think this slice of life just shows how incredibly complex people's lives are. All these different threads, stress, hurt, history, they all intersect, even in something as seemingly simple as a first date.
Yeah. And it really highlights how the plans and opinions and worries of people around us don't always match up with reality, do they? Their whole rescue narrative was completely different from Helen's actual experience.
It really was. It makes you think, doesn't it? How much of our own understanding of people or situations is maybe filtered through what others tell us, through their biases or anxieties.
Versus what we actually learn from just direct experience, from letting things unfold without a pre-written script or escape plan.
Exactly. Something to maybe keep in mind next time you find yourself observing someone else's story unfold. Or maybe when you realize someone might be observing yours.
So, what are you doing now?
Just getting ready for the next episode. Just
And,
moving mics around again.
So, what do you do?
I do the spot effects on the archers.
Are you what we call Foley then?
Kind of. Yep.
Okay. And these are all part of the paraphernalia of production.
Yep. That's the ball bar.
This one.
Katie so wanted to be in their own place when their baby came. So, due in 2 months. I'm not much chance of that now. I mean, it would have been a stretch for a boy naturally, mind you. Oh, I just wish there was something practical I could do to help them get along.
I think The Archers has had this immense popularity over the years, basically because it has always very accurately reflected the reality of life and living in a rural community at whatever